Hades is one of the many indie games out there that really showed the world what indie games can accomplish and how they can be amazing and really awesome to the point of even being way better than what is looked at as the great games of AAA. While that's not surprising to probably you probably have played Hades and probably enjoy it because it's good. It's an awesome roguelike game that has a tough gameplay aesthetic in a way that you like it, and also a fun humor and a fun world to be a part of. But while mechanically wise this game is really fun, it does pose some questions as its setting being, well, seeped into the Olympic lore. At least for people like me who are Christians and sometimes have to question games about whether they can play it or not based on, well, what the game seeped into. So can Christians play a game such as Hades, which is heavily seeped into the Olympic lore, or if that side is bad and can't play it because of that, can at least the gameplay side of it alone be enough to warrant a Christian being able to play this game? Hello, I'm Noah Price, your Christian gamer. I love RPGs and JRPGs, and on top of that, its cousin, roguelikes. And luckily on this kind of reviews that I get to do, it's not really, it's kind of a review, I don't know, it's weird, I don't know. But every 5 games that I cover, I get to actually do a special video. These special reviews or videos are games that I cover that are based on your suggestion. So I usually go down in the comments of who commented down below or any other means of contacting me and saying, hey, play this game, and I cover them. This time it's Hades, and I'm really glad it is because I have touched this game, but I didn't beat this game because who would have guessed it? It's hard, mostly because one of the genre itself of being a roguelike and having that repeat, that loop of gameplay of being always having to start over because the gameplay is hard, but very rewarding. So I haven't beaten the game, so I'm really glad that I was able to pick this game. The viewer who suggested this game is someone that I know who's a friend of mine. He is a fellow YouTuber who goes by Scotty. Little plug, I guess. It's no surprise why he kind of suggests this game. One, he loves it himself. He constantly plays it and talks about how he loves it. But not only that, he's actually making his own game, and it's also is similar to where it has Olympic lore, but also it's more of a Fire Emblem game. But that's neither here or there. But remembering back to when I used to play this game, I really did enjoy the gameplay side of it. While it is a little bit different compared to my preferences when it comes to roguelikes, and if you don't know, my preference is the more random, the better. So the biggest ones that I like to look to for sure is Enter the Gungeon. So their way of doing gunplay and that being, there's so many guns out there that you could use, and me loving that side of it. And coming to Hades, which is, it takes a different approach to it. Not bad, but it's different. I'm still very much looking forward to jumping back in and playing this game, just because it has been a long time. I know it's a great game. It's just, man, where I got to was the second level. I got to the Hydra, and boy, did that just whoop on me forever. So hopefully it won't take forever to whoop on the Hydra and get good, but we'll have to see. Now, I know I kind of asked if it's okay for Christians to play this game because, you know, it has the Olympic mythos in the game. And while I kind of debunked that already by saying I've already kind of played this game, I still think it's something to take into consideration because we'll talk about it a little bit later, but, you know, it used to actually be a actual religious thought of basically these gods of Zeus and them actually existing and people actually worshiping them because they thought they exist. So I think for some regards as a Christian, I think it does deserve some respect of taking into consideration, at least me as a Christian who likes to understand what games we were playing and not to just willy-nilly dive into the game that could have a bunch of influences that might not be the best for a Christian. I'm not saying it's bad for a Christian to play games that have bad values, because that's going to be impossible to find a game that has all perfect values for a Christian. I don't think that exists, but I do think it's important to be aware of them. So that's more what I'm talking about, is just being aware of them. But enough of me just yabbering on about this. Let's get equipped, put on a breast gear, and let's venture forth into the game. We are told that a few tales are told of Hades, but that this is a tale that the narrator is gonna tell. Alright, feeling mythy? On this journey, we do get a few moments where we get short cutscenes, and I don't think they're anything that impacts the story too much, but I do believe they are used in a way that actually does help with actually pacing the game and breaking up the flow of just constant getting wrecked in this very hard but fun roguelike. We start off by landing in Tartarus and saying goodbye to our father in an edgy voice. It's not a phase. Once in combat, it is clear that this game is a hack and slash game. While the hack and slash genre can be sometimes monotonous, as we'll see in this game, it does a great job at combining this mechanic with having a fast-paced movement and deadly enemies constantly to keep the combat always engaging. And already in a game like this that is a roguelike and its fast-paced nature, it is always good and important to try to avoid losing as much health as possible. But for the controls and mechanics that we have to our disposal, we have a normal attack, a heavy attack, which is actually our special, a dash button, and we also have the option of a projectile button, which flings a weird red crystal, which seems to be unique to us. I don't know. I honestly don't use it too much early on, but this is actually a very important mechanic to start making the most of later on. Pro tips. Finally, we clear our first room of goons and we are introduced to the biggest roguelike element of possible randomness we can get per run on this game. And through this, we actually make a small communication with Olympus itself. And we talk to the goddess herself, Athena. We seem to be related to her in some regards, just in way of being the son of a god. And because of that, Olympus is going to try its best to help us get out of this place. Now with these boons as options, I choose the Divine Dash because deflecting projectiles by dashing is pretty easy and actually really helpful as to prevent chaos that slews in with projectiles. As I always mention, I like the more possible randomness that you can get per run. And while there is a lot of options for randomness in this game, through just the boon mechanics in itself, I feel like it's much more built in a way where you can try and go for certain builds if you want to be more consistent. This first few areas is pretty straightforward. There are traps that can hurt you, which, like a silly goose, I did trigger them. The traps are just a small possible problem. Never too much of an issue though. But they do add to the possible chaos that is ensue in this roguelike. At the end of this, we get our first roguelike material. But we'll go into more of what it can be used to once we get to that area. As a side note, compared to some other roguelikes, like Enter the Gungeon and Moonlighter, with how chaotic this game can be, I'm just very glad that dashing into pits is not an option. We meet our second god, which is Dionysus. Definitely butchered his name there, the god of wine. And this is where we start to learn that the different gods' boons are basically different types. Athena, who we ran into earlier, gives us stuff around deflecting, while Dio here does abilities around the hangover effect, which is really just what we know as poison. Good old alcohol poisoning. We choose the Drunken Strike because being able to cause enemies to constantly take damage through poison, I mean drunkenness, is really good. I just now realized the line, humanity so often struggles to relieve itself of cognate thoughts and keenly tempted senses, which is a very interesting quote. But once again, we are going to hold off a bit before we start talking about the gods. After sharing some hangovers, we got our first power up, which lets us choose one of our boons that we have and level it up by 1, making it much more powerful. We choose the Drunken Strike since that's where we're dealing most of our damage. So far, the journey has been a linear path, but finally we run into the ever so often split path where we actually get to pick which reward we want at the end of the road. Whenever a roguelike gives you roguelike elements, you should always invest into those roguelike elements early on. They definitely really will help improve your runs in the long term so much quicker. But hey, we lucked out with the money option since we instantly ran into our boy Jared, who sells us wares. Either way, we end up buying some food from him since I did take some damage to the Lee, And I mean, what else? Am I gonna save my money? Of course not. Also, there's a lot of these interactable spots that give us a little life to the environment. But this one does let us know that the reason why Charon has opened up a shop is because of greed. Of course it is. And afterwards, we are greeted to one of the best elements in this game, Zagreus' quips back at the narrator. In the next room, we run into our boss. Well, actually a mini-boss. Two bombers who constantly throw bombs. I definitely recall getting bodied by these two with my first ever encounter of these two. But this time, I did my best to constantly zip around while slapping the two with hangovers. And being able to deflect the bombs back at them with my dash helped a lot with avoiding a lot of the blows I could have taken. But sadly, I didn't dash enough, and just barely I died. After death, we walk out of a bloody pool where we enter into our hub world, which is the House of Hades. Instantly, we see an exclamation mark over an NPC that screams, "Talk to this person!" And we talk with Hypnos, who is the sleep incarnate, which seems to be the one who greets the freshly dead. We talk with Hades, the god of the dead, who gives us a hard time for trying to escape, but no actual punishment. It is confirmed that he is Zagreus' dad. Daddy issues in the game, eh? I guess we'll find out later if it's actually true that Hades doesn't care if we actually escape or not. We make sure to pet the bestest of boys, Cerberus, and we talk with Nyx, the Knight Incarnate, who we find out as a player that she's actually the one helping us escape to the surface. In fact, she was the one who helped make contact with the Olympians gods in the first place. But there is a twist. It seems that they think we are escaping to join them, while that's not exactly our plans. In the next room, we are welcome to our room. The most important thing here so far is this, a mirror. This is the biggest roguelite mechanic in this game. The difference between roguelikes and roguelites is that roguelites means that there's potential progression of the game outside of each run of the game. Elements that you could do to boost your character so that when you go into next runs, they are permanently just buffed. This mirror lets us spend the purple crystals, which we have picked up, to slowly but permanently upgrade Zagreus for future runs. The only two we can get is Shadow's Presence and Chthonic Vitality. The first one does more damage to enemies from behind, and the other lets me heal up a little bit after each room. Again, I wish I had focused on this slightly a bit more early on, but we'll get to it. Also important, we see the key icon, which is a material we picked up, but we'll have to wait until we have 5 to see what it can possibly do for us with this mirror. See, right here, this is exactly what I mean about the narrator and Zagreus just basically quipping back and forth with each other. I love it so much. Going past our rooms, we find another use for our keys. There looks to be 6 different possible weapons that we actually get to use. So far, the first one on the left is the only one we can use unless we actually use up one of our keys, which we make use of right now to make it so that we have the bow as an option. If anybody knows me, I always love using the bow if I can. After that, we are introduced to one of my favorite NPCs in this game. This NPC is Skelly, the training dummy. From what I know, this is really just a practice dummy to test out your moves before you go in per run. But just the fact that he's snarky and secretive, it's so much charm. I love it so much. On top of that, I actually do like it when a game gives a little list of moves you can do if you pick up a weapon. I don't like it when these basically turn into full-on tutorials to where you have to do the moves in order to move on. But I do like it when it's there so that, let me make sure I can get these moves before I actually look like a fool in a run. Enough yapping though about this, let's just jump into a run. Right off the bat, it seems we get started off with Zeus, who is the king of the Olympians. As you could probably guess, Zeus's boons do shock stuff. These first boons are usually similar of a normal light strike, your projectile move, or adding an effect to your dash. I like going with the dash effect a lot, since then that it basically effectively gives us a whole nother option of dealing damage. By playing this game previously, I know that with some boons, the bow can get super nasty, but that's for later. To be honest with the bow, I'm not too crazy about its normal charge tech. It's a bit slow and really makes you kind of commit to attacking, which is kind of hard to do.
And special move is also pretty combative. It makes you stand still and just do an array of arrows, which is good for a crowd attack, but beyond that, it's kind of not that great. I do know some upgrades later on, if we'll ever find them, that will change that and make it very deadly. We picked the room with a heart on it, which means when we vanquish this next room, we'll actually get an upgrade to our max health, which I always love, especially starting out when I'm not the best at the game. With using the bow, I'm actually getting forced to have to slow down a bit. I didn't mention this before, but some enemies with a yellow bar means that they have a shield, which we have to deal damage to first, before we can take down its health. It's a bit annoying, but there are some boons potentially in the future which help specifically with stripping armor of our enemies. And hey, it looks like Poseidon's boons will help with knocking back enemies. We decided to go with the Ocean's Bounty, just because the potential of getting more currency can be really good for both this run and for the mirror later. After dislodging some multiple skull piles, we got to level up our singular boon to deal more damage. Great, but I really need a little bit more variety here, to be honest. And our Father in Heaven said, no, no more boons, just purples instead, I guess. I actually feel way less confident against these bombers this time around, even though we do have the range. It's just, with what boons we do have. And yep, sadly, the bow was just a bit too slow to dodge all the bombs, and I got blew up. Back home, I learned that Hypnos will have something unique to say depending on how you died. Cool. Neat. Talking with Mother, we learned that there's a new NPC that we can throw new kinds of materials at, aka the second roguelike material. So far we have none, but it looks like they do provide some new stuff that can happen within our runs of upgrading. There's also a lot of cosmetic items, which sounds like it would be kind of a nightmare to complete, to be honest. We slap one into the vitality so that we can hopefully survive longer, and we decide to head back in with the sword. I need a little bit more time away from the bow after just having a horrible run. And already it's different. This time, we don't start with a boon, but instead with a hammer, which enchants our weapons to work a little bit different. This is exactly what we needed with the bow, but oh well. I decided to go with the Curse Slash because even though we will have a low max health because of it, being able to just potentially fully restore health is super powerful in my book. Also, in the future, we could possibly run into some max health racers to kind of compensate for this consequence. And after getting some purples, that's exactly what happens. I'm really glad that what is probably looked at in most games and in a lot of ways is the vanilla starter weapon is actually potentially good and can be very viable in each runs. After snatching a key, we choose to hopefully get our first boon for this run, which wasn't too hard to do. Again, we go with giving our dash putback for better or worse. And look, there's a little portable charity shop. We decide to get some more keys so that we can unlock more weapons in the future. And after grabbing 2 of the keys, honestly thought I was only going to get 1, it's time to see if we get some help from the wine guy. Honestly, in the previous area, the pushback from dashing was making the combat a little bit annoying, just with the combination of it being a spacious room and our weapon being close range. But it's not too bad. With Dio, we got the chance to have our first epic boon. Yes, there is rarity to these boons, and while gaining health after encounters would be great, we sadly already got a good setup for restoring health, so let's give our big overhead attack some hangover damage. We run into some brimstones, which can easily tear through our health. Luckily, they are pretty fail, but still, I was a little bit scared to be honest, just getting flashback from the last time I played this game. As we talk with Athena, we hear a little bit about how there is a little family feud between Zeus and Hades. And funny enough, that is kind of half of this game. The other half is about the family feud between Zagreus and Hades. I didn't want to get rid of what little boons we already had, so instead of going with the Divine Dash, we decided to make our projectile attack be able to deflect projectiles. Not the worst thing, but honestly a little bit hard to get off. After some purples, we decide to see if we can get one of my favorite types of boons in this game. But first, let's see if I can actually take care of these goons. This went way better than the previous attempts. We only got hurt once, which was a little scary, but these two shouldn't have given us this much trouble as it did the last 2 times. We talk with Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, who provides us with boons that let us have the chance to critical damage. Yes, as an RPG lover, the more possible crits, the better. And all of our options are epic tier, which is even better. We go with the Deadly Strike, which just in general makes our normal attack stronger, which is what we want to do in general to get our health back, so it synergizes there. But now it will have an extra 50% chance to crit when it hits, and whenever it does crit, it does 200 plus damage. Crits, 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 yes! But sadly, after being a silly boy and not patient enough to rebuild my health, I die by a delayed strike. No! My critical damage! I just got it. After our dad being snarky at us for dying again, we decide to use 4 keys to unlock Varatha, the Eternal Spear, which lets us attack with lunge, and it also lets us throw our spear and then recall it back. And we can do our charge special, which does a weird full circle sweep, which I really don't make the most of. But that throwing the spear and calling it back like Kratos does, oh, I love it so much. We start off the run with Poseidon's help, who lets us use Tempest Flourish, which will let us do pushback damage when we throw and recall our spear, which is honestly, again, just my favorite part of the spear. So yeah, let's boost it. After some purples, we decide to upgrade our spear to see what we can get. And we decide to go with the Flurry Jab, which allows us to attack normally more quickly, while getting rid of the spin attack, which, again, as I said, it's not something I'm going to be using a lot. After some more purples, we got a power up, which we can only use on our Tempest Flourish. At Churn's shop, we buy the Eye of Lamia, because potentially getting health drops is not a bad thing for a scrub that I am right now. After more purples, we easily take care of the Bomberman again. And we get help from Artemis, where we choose to get Deadly Strike again. Since we can strike much faster this time, we will most likely get more crits. Yes! Crit, crit, crit! We finally run into one of the challenge rooms, where Hades sends a bunch of goons and our only goal is to survive. A lot of times these are easy to survive, but the really hard part is just not losing too much blood, which can just cripple the rest of the run. After surviving, we get a pretty important item that we can't use yet, but we will in just a bit. We then went into our next area where there's 2 possible boon symbols. And here we get one of the risk rewards where we have the Trial of the Gods, where we have to pick one of the gods that we have already chosen as boons. It was an easy choice. Obviously, I went with Artemis because crit, crit, crit. And we picked the boon Support Fire. And what happens next showcases a big part of how I feel about the Greek mythos in this game, especially when it's portrayed in this game. There are some consequences for us picking Artemis and not Poseidon. Poseidon gets a bit butthurt since we didn't pick him, and now with this encounter of dealing with enemies, we actually have to worry about a water effect of Poseidon actually trying to hurt us. As a mechanic, this is a great risk reward to potentially get more boons, but with the risk of possibly dying because the encounter is going to be much more harder. So yeah, as a mechanic, oh, I love this so much. It works so well, I believe. On the other side, what this potentially shows story-wise is very interesting. The pettiness of attacking because you weren't picked, again, just supports how I personally perceive of the Greek gods. While growing up, there hasn't been a single person in my life that claimed to truly believe in the Greek gods and its mythos as to being real. I mean, as a Christian, it's always been interesting, the Greek mythos, because in the Bible, it's accounted to as a secular religion. We see that Paul and Barnabas, while they're sharing the word of God to other people, evangelizing, they're actually bowed down to and treated as if they are Hermes and Zeus, which is always interesting because this is a time where this religion is actually treated to, this mythology isn't a mythos, it's actually real to them, which is very separate from how it is today. As I mentioned, it's not really ever looked at as a real thing, it's looked at as fantasy. But it's always been interesting to me because I'm a Christian, and I do believe this game kind of represents the gods in a great way. The idea of a god in the Greek mindset is that they are a being that has a limited but specific powers, who has like a direct roles or responsibility, but also has human tendencies like lust. As a Christian, it's very different than what I know from the definition of God, like in the Bible. I know this is a tangent, but as a Christian, the idea of the gods definition of what it is being just separate depending on what mythos you're talking to is very interesting. But yeah, while I was a little bit sidetracked with this, Poseidon killed us. So back at home at the mirror, we finally get our first Death Defiance, which is very powerful. Death Defiance means that when we are supposed to die, we instead come back at half our health. This should definitely help us with getting farther in these runs. We gave our Skelly friend a gift that we had acquired in the last run, which he gratefully accepted, and he gave us an item that's in this cabinet. Turns out there are keepsakes, which we can equip one of to help us within a run. And with Skellies, we actually get a whole nother Death Defiance. Awesome. We choose to go for the spear run again. And right off the bat, we get Poseidon trying to help us out as if he didn't just get done whooping on us. Ridiculous. Well, I guess it's worth it because it's a new kind of boon. Poseidon's aid as a mechanic that when a bar down below is filled up, we can press the trigger button and basically go Super Saiyan, but with the power of Poseidon. And I didn't really realize this till later, but it's especially more potent when it's maxed out completely. And when I mean it's better by a good margin. After slowly slaying the next room, we power up our only boon, and then we went to grab some more nectars, because from what little I know, giving more nectars to NPCs will help us get more gifts, which in turn are basically keepsakes, which can potentially be very powerful in each run, especially if they're like skellies. We then choose to actually get at least any kind of boons, anything besides just our Super Saiyan form. While it's good, I need something else. Dio makes mention that the communication is only one way, which is great for lore reasons, and seems as if he can't hear us or even see us. Again, I like the lore building in this game. It's great. We take the Drunken Flourish so that our spear throw can actually do some hangover damage, which is great because I'm going to be using that a lot. And after some purples, and after that we take out some bombers so that we can get some help from Artemis, which I instantly, when given the chance, give a nectar to her so that we can actually get her keepsake, which is a adamant arrowhead. So we'll have to wait until we get to the cabinet to see what it does. We also get the boon True Shot from her. It's not the best, but maybe it'll help us to actually use our projectile more. And after surviving a survive room, we get a key, and we pick up a hydrolite and an ignited ichor from Charon's well to help us out for a few more encounters. We then, instead of upgrading our spear, we choose to get another boon, which may or may not be a good decision. Again, I just need a little bit more. We decide to be proud with Athena and go with Proud Bearing, which will allow us to lean more into the Super Saiyan form. And after barely surviving from deadly crystals, we were able to get a 25 life boost to our max health. We decided to upgrade our proudness because nothing bad ever happened with being proud. We then restore some health and spend the rest of our money so that we don't have to go to Charon's shop, but instead actually try to boost our health even more. Oh, and yeah, they're just gonna give it away. And with this next item being something we haven't seen, this probably indicates that we're at our first boss. And yep, our first boss. I'm a little ashamed it took us this long. I know I haven't played the game in a while, but I have played it, so it shouldn't have taken us this long to get to our first boss. Our game plan is to keep a distance while just plinking her with our hungover spear and hoping that will slowly take her out, which actually was working out pretty well until she started throwing some projectiles with the help of her goons. I just did my best at mixing in some Super Saiyan powers while actually trying to stay consistent with keeping the hangover effects on her. But then she moved to do some explosions from these circles, which made it very hard to be throwing the spear, because while we do it, we are standing still for a little bit. And at only 4 life left, we took out Meg with our projectile. Whoa, that was really close. I guess we got some Titan blood, which we will learn later as to how it can help us. And we make it to the next floor. Good old dad says how proud he is, and it looks like we're at a little rest area. We decide to sell our true shot since it'll give us a lot of money, and honestly, I really don't make the most of it. We use the money to buy an item that will actually make our next boon that we get a upgraded variety. We also spend money to make it so that we'll potentially get more health drops, and we make it so that when we throw our spear, it's just more potent. But it's off to our second floor, and it's off to ASPHODEL. I'm gonna butcher all these words. And right off the bat, we have to deal with our bomber boys. But it seems like this area is going to be very easy to get hurt by lava. So much for falling off pits, I guess. At Jared's shop, I was hoping we could buy something to help keep us alive, like health or something. Because honestly, it hasn't been looking pretty. We pick up a power-up item, which levels up our proudness. And we picked up some more purples. In the next floor, we run into two bozos, a Gorgon head, and a weird stone job stumping head. And it does take long for us to lose our last Death Defiance, mostly because the Gorgon shoots petrified projectiles that freezes us for a moment where, as I mentioned, staying still makes you an easy target. And just would take forever to throw our spear and get it back, we get smushed by a thwomp. Back home, we get some more family drama of Hades confronting Nyx about helping us, mostly boiled down to Hades hating that the Olympians know of Zagreus and is doing anything in his realm, but that's about it. Since I got a little bit of ore, I went to the builders to build the Plunder Lesser, and I realized I could have bought the Fountain Chamber in Tartarus, which gives a little rest area for free. Whoops. So yeah, we got both of them. And we made it so that we could switch our keepsakes out in between floors, which should be helpful. Looks like the lounge is open, and we can talk with Meg, the first floor's boss. And it seems that we are cool. At the very least, she says she won't be holding her punches. At the mirror, we pumped in 50 purples for an additional dash, which will definitely help with maneuvering in this chaos. When choosing our weapon, there's a purple glow around our sword, and if we decide to choose this weapon, we'll actually get 20% more purple during this run. I actually really like this additional mechanic because it'll help to incentivize us to actually mix up the gameplay and not just commit to one weapon to get good at. I like it. At the cabinet, we learned that the keepsake that Artemis gave us will make sure that the next boon we get will be from her, and that her boons will have a 10% to be rare or even better. I think this is a great way to help you if you want to focus your run on a certain boon. So, starting with Artemis, we choose, against my better judgment, to go with the Hunter's Dash, which gives our dash strikes more damage. After a health upgrade, we choose Support Fire, which will fire a seeking arrow when we attack in any wave. This seems like it could be pretty good for crowd control. And with some more gift stuff, we go to get that money. And then we ran into a new mini-boss, which I hate. A big crystal boss that does a lot of laser damage, and who pumps out a bunch of dudes who will help refract the lasers. And even though we were brought all the way down to only 9 health, we were able to defeat it. Oh, I hate that mini boss. We give Poseidon the gifts we just got, and in turn, he gives us the conch shell, which I'm confident does the same as Artemis keepsake, but for Poseidon's boons. So yeah, that's good. We also grabbed the boon Tempest Strike to buff and give pushback on our normal swings. After taking some damage, but surviving a survive room, we get a power up, which we choose to level up our support fire. More arrow damage! We then get some purple and choose to go for another upgrade, since we are already so low in health. I personally don't want to take off Poseidon again. And we are greeted to the fountain. Exactly what I needed, some heals. We level up our Tempest Strike so that we can do more damage, and then we heal ourselves a massive 15 health. Not as much as I was hoping, but hey, I guess I can't complain, it is free. We snatched some health and then off to face Meg. And while we came close to defeating her without losing our last Defiance, we were able to power through and finish her with only 18 health left. Woo! We decided to switch out our arrow keepsake with the Lucky 2 so that we can hopefully see more of the next actual level. After dealing with some skellies, we got some more perps. And honestly, since I'm not the most confident with this run, we might as well try this Trova trial to possibly gain 50 more purples, which is basically a challenge of, hey, how quickly can you slay all the foes? The longer you take, the less purples you'll get, which in our case means we only get 25, and we're at only 2 health. Was it worth it? Was it worth it? We get our last Death's Defiance smacked out of us by a skelly who's blue badadi, and even with the second light, we only barely survived with 3 life. And then what little hope I had vanished when I got smushed by another thwomp. Back at the house, we stoop on a conversation between Meg and Nix, who discuss about their roles and responsibility and keeping the House of Hades in order. We find that Achilles is down here, and we learn that he was actually the one, in fact, who trained us. Makes sense. We had to learn it from someone. Back at our room, though, we are directed to lie down. And with it, we get to learn some backstory. I still love the quipping back and forth. It never gets old. This little flashback shows us a letter from Persephone to Hades, and by the narrator literally saying it, Zagreus learns of who his actual mother is. And we learn the purpose for Zagreus fighting to escape. I've enjoyed how the story has been told in between our escape attempts. It hasn't felt too forced in either way. There hasn't been too much focus on the gameplay to where I want to know the story, and there hasn't been too much of the story to where I'm just getting derailed and I just want to play the game. It's been a good balance. For this next run, we decided to go with the conch shell and decide to see what this shield can do for us. And already, I love it for the Captain America shield throw. As we try and start our next run, we get this little panel that says, family. Death is your only family. Death and I. Best get accustomed to the both of us. Not really sure what to make of these. We get a few more of them in the future, and honestly, I don't know what to say about them. All I know is family drama is strong with this one. Right off the bat, we go with the knockback dash, which is a way better dash than we've had in the past. After getting some gems, don't know why I called them ore earlier, we find out from Zeus that our shield actually used to be his. Cool. We also decided to get the Thunder Flourish, since I'm going to be throwing my shield a lot more than anything else. We get an upgrade where we decide to get the Empowering Flight, which will give more synergy of throwing our shield and then slapping some foes. It's time to see how it works against the Crystal mini-boss though. And while it was a pain of having to deal with the ads that would be spewed out, the boss was much easier since we could just throw our shield at a distance. After the crystal, we get to have another boon from Zeus. We choose to get the Static Discharge, so that when the enemy attacks next, it actually instead gets jolted, which hurts itself. Which honestly, I kind of think this might be great against the boss. After a survival room, we level up our health, and we decided to go and level up our health again, so that we can bring our health to a meaty 100. We then get some nectar and some more purples. And then we decide to get one more boon before we take on Meg again. And we decide to give our nectar, which we just got, which actually got us a owl pendant. Then I decided to grab the boon Bronze Skin, since reduction from attacks seemed pretty good. Because of our shield, the actual projectile parts in Meg's fight is actually a lot more easier this time around. Awesome. And ultimately, our build was just strong enough to take her out. I'm feeling pretty confident about this run. I was hoping to make more use of the conch shell, but just to help us make some distance in this run, let's go for the Lucky Tooth. After some bombers, we for the first time meet with Ares, the god of war. Kind of weird it took this long to run into him, but okay. We ended up going for the Curse of Agony boon, since adding the new effect of Doom seems pretty good. Doom is after a brief moment the victim takes a burst of damage, basically future sight. We also take on a purple trail, where we ended up with 26 purple, more than half. And if we thought the blue skellies were bad, the red skellies are so much worse. While they didn't take me out, they were able to send a slash projectile, which can do some nasty damage if I just take it. I don't like them. At Cheri's shop, we buy a power-up, which we level up our damage reduction, because, again, less damage is really good, I think. Our next encounter is on a barge that we're stuck on. This is similar to like an elevator or a train level, but I don't mind it. since I think it's used in a way to actually switch up the feel of the normal dungeon crawl in this map. We still have both of our Death Defiance, but we came close to using one of them. For Poseidon, we get the boon Ocean's Bounty, since I'm not too sure how much longer we're going to make it on this run. And be able, again, to get more purples and gems seemed pretty good. Since we were only at 11 health, we sadly lose one of our Death's Defiance, but I have some confidence that we can still at least make it to the boss of this level. That's at least my goal for this run. We grabbed some purples and then we came close to losing our last Death's Defiance. But we did survive and we meet probably my second favorite boon type, which is from Hermes, the goddess Swiftness. As you can probably guess, his boon types deal with making things faster, which is super powerful in roguelikes. I decided to go with the boon Greater Haste, which just makes our movement speed faster, which again, very powerful. We then decide to go to Charon's shop since I really don't want to lose more health before we even get to the boss, which kind of sucks because we can't really buy anything, but oh well. We finally make it to the boss that made me quit this game, the Hydra. The first phase of this boss is not too much of a problem, especially with us using our shield, which can be used to block projectiles and to be thrown from a distance. The problem comes when the main Hydra summons more heads. At first, it's just 3 heads, which can be a problem due to chaos. Oh no. But it gets really bad when the main head summons 6 additional chaos conductors. But actually, on our first confrontation, we take out the Hydra. This is honestly all to the time I spent with the boss in my personal time previously playing this game. But still, I'm surprised we were able to do it on our first try. And we get a diamond, and I guess it's off to the 3rd floor. All right. Thanks to Charon's shop, we were able to replenish some of our health. And then we decided to switch out our owl pennant because why not? But now it's time for the 3rd level. It's time for Elysium. This area is interesting because it makes the main grunt enemy have a new mechanic. When they are killed, what looks to be like a weird soul pumps out of them, and then we have to hurry up and kill them. We have to kill that soul, or otherwise the enemy can actually come back and keep fighting us, which can be very frustrating. But that's all we get to see, since so much damage could just easily be dished out that, yeah, we died. But hey, we beat the Hydra. Back home, we actually get to learn that the weapons we've been using is from old Daddy-O's collection, and just due to old memories, he hasn't been touching them, so it was easy for us just to snatch them. Cool. We decided to buy the Fated list of Minor Prophecy, which is actually pretty important. And with extra change, we also get the Urns of Wealth, which will help us with getting a little bit more spending cash throughout our runs. In our room, we check out the Fated list, which is basically an achievement, where by accomplishing different objectives, you can gain certain rewards. Personally, for us, this is just going to be a little bonus of rewards we may get along our journey. I ain't no completionist. At the mirror, we max out both our healing by going to the next rooms and our damage bonus for attacking enemies from behind. Now we just got to get more keys so that we can unlock more of the mirror. At the weapon selection, we see a new weapon which looks like some fisticuffs. I kind of want to get more purple, so we decide to go with the bow again. And then we continue to use the owl pennant and see how Athena can help us. The game said no to us getting help from Athena because right off the bat, the game throws Aphrodite, the goddess of love, who I honestly don't really care for. Why, Noah? Why? Don't you like love? Not when the character, the goddess, is designed like this. Here's the reason why I have a problem with it. For one, all the other character designs we have been seeing have been fine, but this one is just completely unnecessary. It stands out like a sore thumb, and I don't like it. I've already mentioned before because as a Christian, I don't like seeing stuff like this because, you know, lust is a thing. I like to be pure and not have to deal with temptation, and she is literally right in your face as a temptation. I'm just telling you, like, are you kidding me? She's not wearing anything. Ridiculous. I'm outraged! The special type of boon that she gives is Weak, which causes the enemy to deal less damage. We can be pretty good against bosses. We ended up picking Passion Dash, which as always will give our dash a little more utility of actually being able to deal damage also. After getting some more gems, we finally in this run actually get some help from Athena. As we decide which boon to choose next, we actually see a new box that says the fated choice. So from now on, while we're in our run, we can see what boon will actually help with progressing the fated list. But we end up going with the Divine Strike because making our attacks deflect and become stronger seems pretty good. Not the best for the bow, but let's see how it works. We got some health and then some gems, and then we get a rest area where we get some more purples. After piercing some giants, we get some help from Ares, not Athena. And we choose to give our special, which is a spray shot, Doom, by picking Curse of Pain. We get another chance with Athena, but we're gonna have to choose and hope to survive. We choose Brilliant Repose, mostly because I would like to use Deathless Stand if we had more Death Defiances and could actually make use of the one replenish it gives. But sadly, it's not that worth it. When dealing against Aphrodite, you just gotta dodge that floating heart, because otherwise it's gonna deal so much damage to you and it stuns you for a second. Oh, it's not worth it. But after taking a lot of damage from mostly the hearts, we survived and got the boon Broken Resolve, which will boost our weak effect. After losing our Death's Defiance, we take out the bomber mini-boss and got a boon from Poseidon, where we grabbed the boon Hydraulic Might, making our attack and special stronger at the beginning of combat. After a chaotic orb field, we boost our health, and then we come across something very peculiar. A weird abyss where if we decide to go down, we lose a whopping 23 health. So obviously I said yes, of course. This is obviously an area that's common in a lot of roguelikes that as a player, you should definitely get comfortable with saying yes to. This is a risk-reward area that could possibly really skyrocket your run in power, but it is always risky. In this area, we meet Chaos, the primordial originator. Sure, bud. Sure you are. While Chaos isn't like any of the Olympians who've helped us so far, this Chaos will still help us with its own boons. All of its boons come with a consequence that usually comes in the form of a handicap for a couple encounters. And then after you survive for X amount of encounters, you then will actually get the effects of the boon. Again, heavy risk, but a really good reward. We end up going with Abyssal Strike, which seems like a fair trade of just avoiding traps for encounters so that we can have an attack boost. Back at Tartarus, we upgrade our Curse of Pain to boost our Doom damage before we take on Meg. Our Sprayed Special greatly helped with clearing the onslaught projectiles, which also helped with sprinkling a little bit of Doom damage on the boss. The problem we started having was when she would send her aura explosions, since it forced us to not be able to stand too long or else we would get hurt, which using a bow kind of forced us to stand still. Basically, we got a lot of damage. But with the weakening on her, her damage wasn't hitting too much. And with hitting her with our strong attack, we were able to take down Meg. We switched to the Lucky 2 so that we can have another Death's Defiance, and then we head to the next floor. We instantly snatch up some Nectar, but also our Lucky 2 rigged up. Not sure in what way, but we'll find out later. After getting some gems, our boon with Chaos is actually functional, which is good because now I don't have to stress about traps anymore. We deal with a frenzy-filled party boat, where I was a bit surprised we didn't lose too much life. And then I give Aphrodite a Nectar so that we can get her keepsake. And then we got the boon Different League from her, which will help with taking reduced damage. Dealing with a bunch of bombers and even some baby Hydra heads, we got the boon Greater Haste for Hermes again, because movement speed is that good. Kinda wish I saved my Nectar for him. We stopped by Charon's shop before heading to the non-baby Hydra boss. We grab some health and the boon Poseidon's Aid from Poseidon, so that if needs be, we can be invincible for a little bit. And right away, we're cleaving through the boss's health. When the other heads show up, they weren't too much of a problem as I was expecting because of getting to slap Doom on them, and then if I was going to get hit, just dashing through the heads just to make them weak with Charm. It was a great combo. And when I was getting a little bodied, I was actually able to use Poseidon's Aid to just ram some damage back at them. And sadly, just barely at the end, I did lose my last Death's Defiance just as I took out the boss. A little bit sad, but at least we won. In between floors, we switched to the Adamant Arrowhead since our Lucky 2 has served its purpose. And now let's see if I can make any progress at Elysium. After clearing a room without taking any damage, we got to enchant our weapon, which we choose triple shot so that it can do more damage by shooting out 2 additional arrows. Sadly, it didn't have the enchantment that I wanted. Then, after we ran away from some chariots, we got a power-up, which we used on our Divine Strike to just make our attacks even more devastating. Even though I did want to upgrade our damage reduction. But hey, glass cannon, let's go! Sadly, when we did made it to Charon's shop, we could only buy some purples, which, I mean, it's great for overall progress, but it doesn't feel great. Oh, and then instantly, we're at the next boss. So it looks like we'll have to take on Astrius, the Bull of Minnows, with what little we got. The bull does some swings that looks like they'll just cleave through me like butter. So I decided to just try and do damage from afar, like a smart boy, which actually worked out. Until the bull started doing his jump attacks, which just punished me for sitting still for too long. The Doom and the Weakening Dash helped to keep me alive and do chip damage, but then he just chased me and I just had to dash for my life. We got to its second phase where when it did its jump attack, it would also make some fissures that could possibly hit me, but at 13 hearts, we won! Woo! And I guess it turns out the bull wasn't the main boss. I guess it was just the mini boss. Awesome. Great. Grab the boon pressure points from Artemis. Even though I wanted to get the heroic deadly strike, I just thought it'd be better to get the boon with the prophecy faded since this run might be ending pretty soon. And instantly in the next room, yep, we got. Back home, we rag on our father for his messy desk and question him as to why the court musician isn't back here after his censusing. And so we pay a whole diamond so that we can free the musician. AKA, we unlocked a new NPC, Orpheus, who is the court musician, even though it seems like he won't play music for us. Alright, I think I'm understanding why he was sentenced in the first place. While talking to Nyx, she unlocks more options with the mirror, which after spending 5 keys, we have the options of Boiling Blood and Infernal Soul. Boiling Blood makes our attacks and special do extra damage if they have our projectiles stuck in them, and Infernal Soul gives us more projectiles, which we decided to get an extra projectile and to go with 30% more damage if an enemy is stuck with our projectile. I think it's a really good combo. In our room, we got to claim some rewards from completing some of the Fated Prophecies, which actually got us a whopping 3 nectars and 80 gems. I decided to give one of our nectars to Achilles since he's cool, and he gives us his keepsake. I gave my second nectar to our musician, who we just freed and got a keepsake from him, and we decided to use some of our gems to give the underworld a small healing area. Could probably be helpful. And then before starting a new run, we give our last nectar to Meg, and of course, she gives us the keepsakes too. Now let's see what all these keepsakes do. Achilles gives a trade-off of taking less damage in front of us, but it means we take more damage from behind. Meg's lets us deal more damage when we are at low health, and Orpheus's lets us just deal more damage to foes far away. This one actually might be pretty good if we're using like our shield or our bow. Our next run started off actually pretty promising. Early on, we got a chance for some risk and reward from Chaos. We tried our best to make the most of the keepsake that lets us attack from far away to get boosted, but doesn't really work. And we died by a loose spawn. He didn't even make it to the Hydra this time. With more family drama at home, we decided to add another projectile to our arsenal, and then off to another run, this time focusing on Athena. And once again, early on, we get a chance to do some risk reward, which I will always do. We struggle a bit with the first level mini boss, taking away most of our health, before we had to fight Meg. Before fighting Meg, we give our friend Sharon a nectar and got his keepsake. We handled Meg pretty well for how little health we had, and while I was a bit worried of some bomb boys, we were able to make it to the Hydra this time. But sadly, that was as far as I could make it. I just lost too much health trying to be too up close. We get some more drama at home when Orpheus doesn't want to make music, which, as a court musician, can be a problem. And then we give our Boiling Blood a 10% boost. And with Orpheus faraway attacks being used, we start our next run. While making our way through the first level, we run into our so-called friend, Sisyphus. You know, the guy stuck for eternity who has to keep pushing a boulder up a hill for it to just fall back down. Yeah, that one. We choose to get some darkness from him because Can't be too edgy. As we continue this run, we get my favorite enchantment for the bow, taking out the charge shot and making it so it's just a rapid fire. Even though we lost a good chunk of health, we did easily take out Meg without wasting our Death's Defiance, which is good. We continue to the next level without switching our keepsake. I want to make use of the boost for attacking far away some more. Going against the Hydra with this build, I felt very confident of success. The question was if I was going to make it out without losing too much health or a Death's Defiance. The answer was no. But we were able to chunk through so much of the Hydra's health, giving us the victory. I mean, we were at 18 health at the end, but still. We do give ourselves a Death's Defiance to Skelly's keepsake as we head to the 3rd level, and while we did our best at staying far away to avoid damage, we still took damage. But luckily, Charon comes in clutch with the wares, well, at least with the health, which allowed us to take care of the worst enemy in the game, these gosh darn butterflies. I hate them! Sadly, that also means we lost our last Death's Defiance, which only kind of mattered because several encounters and more gold later, we were able to actually buy a Death's Defiance back. Then at Charon's main shop, we were able to heal ourselves some as we take on the level's final boss. I'm actually kind of surprised I actually made it this far. This boss is kind of the hardest boss in this game. Kinda. Not only are we facing our Minotaur friend, but we are also taking on Theseus. Someone important, I actually don't know. But this fight is hard because we got the Minotaur doing what he does best, but now with Theseus, who loves to launch javelins at us, and we stand still just for a little bit too long, we'll just take a javelin in the back. And he also has a shield, so if we try to do projectiles to him in front, it just won't work. So with this, unsurprisingly, we lose our Death's Defiance pretty quickly. And with a clean throw, we got killed again very quickly. And this was also with a good run of boons too. Ugh. Back home, we make the fountains give 20% more health, which is good. We learned from Nyx that we should be careful of Chaos in its boons. Not that he's a deceiver, but he is a trickster. Now, I get it, he's not the devil. We get some gems from the Fated List, and then we max out our Boiling Blood to plus 50%. And against my better judgment, I unlock the Gauntlets, aka Monk Style. Honestly, I probably just should have saved up my keys for unlocking more of the mirror, but hey, Monk Style. I learned quickly that while the Gauntlets are great for a high damage output, for some enemies, it's just so easy to lose so much health. We do make it to the 1st floor boss, where we actually don't take on Meg, but one of her sisters. Alright. With it being a Tiff sister, some of the tactics are slightly different. As a gameplay side, I like this a lot because it helps with keeping the game not monotonous and very repetitive. It helps spice it up. This also means we do end up dying to the boss. Sadly, I don't think the gauntlets are very much my style. It just forces me to be too close to the enemies. But I will give the gauntlets one more try. Which, again, we were able to make it to the 1st floor's boss again. This time, Meg's other sister, Electo, who gamer rages. And through our dashes, we were actually able to make it past the 1st boss this time. Progress. Now, versus the 2nd boss, the Hydra, well, again, just being so forced to be close to the enemies in order to really do damage made us just take so much more damage. Which, yes, means we kicked the bucket. Hey, I gave it a second chance. This had to wait since I spent most of our keys on the gauntlets, but finally, with 10 keys, we are able to unlock more of the mirror, so that we can just boost ourselves even more. But what if I told you I instead wasted my keys on another weapon that I'm entirely crazy about again? Okay, hear me out. Now, this weapon is pretty funny because, well, it's just a gun. But hey, at least now I know that we have all the weapons. Now, spoilers, I have unlocked all the weapons before in the last time I've played this game before, and I know what happens once we get all the weapons unlocked. So there's a slight reasoning to my madness. We'll just have to wait until it pops up. And I guess that won't be too long. Rewinding the fight against the fight with Electo, the problem I have with the gun is similar to the same problem I had with the bow. Some of the tactics just take forever to get off, which while you're waiting, you're just a sitting duck, which is deadly in this game. I don't hate this weapon. Its normal attack reminds me of my favorite enchantment on the bow, but beyond that, the gun is meh. It's pretty meh. Back home, we get some more goodies from the Fated List, which we waste on pointless cosmetics. Hey, let me know. Do you like buying cosmetics in games? I honestly do. I personally more like it when it's outfits of the characters, not so much the world, but I had to try it out. But what's more important is that now that I have all the weapons, we can now modify them. Kinda. Now, using the Titan blood we've gained, we can upgrade or even change our weapons, which I greatly love. Sadly, on this journey, I don't get to unlock and upgrade as much as I would like to, but I really do love this. After several deaths on the second floor, we finally unlocked the next section to the mirror, giving us deep pockets and thick skin, both pretty similar. Deep pockets lets us start the run off with a certain amount of money, and thick skin raises our starting life total. So I give us 20 coins to start with and a plus 35 to our max health. Doesn't really matter because we get bodied after our first encounter with the Hydra variant. The main difference is its projectile pattern, so I can't exactly blame that on the Hydra, but I will. Since we got some more purples, I mean like a lot, we decided to max out our thick skin and make it so that we start our run with 30 gold. We unlock the aspect of Nemesis, which gives our weapon a possible crit, which you know I love. And after a really good run with the sword, we sadly weren't even able to make it back to Elysium's final boss. Before jumping back in, we rinse repeat talking to everyone and plopping in our purples to make us start with more money, until I realized I should just spend the 1 key to respec so that I could possibly have 2 death defiances. I always love it when games give you the option to respec, especially when it's done like this, where it does cost, but it's not that much. It's not unreasonable. I decided to try the gun again while focusing on Zeus's boons, and man, am I surprised by how well that worked. Of course, with doing some risk reward with chaos and playing it safe by taking my time at keeping my distance, we were actually able to take out Electo. And with using the distant memory keepsake, we were able to just cleave through so much damage with our normal attack. We finally were able to run into Hermes while we had a nectar so that we could get his keepsake. And again, I have to say, we were able to just cleave through so much damage. Look at it. AKA, we were able to beat the Hydra without losing any of our death defiances. While I hate to do it, going into Elysium, I decided to switch to the Lucky 2 so that we can make sure to actually make some progress with another Death Defiant. Halfway through Elysium, we had to deal with the Minotaur as a mini-boss, and while the boss was able to take care of one of our Death Defiances, we were able to continue our run through Elysium. Luckily, we ran into a fountain where we were able to restore a massive chunk of our health, giving us a real chance at the rest of this run. Along the way, we ran into my favorite NPC. While I like Thanatos as a rival and Erdis because of her music, one of this NPC's options is to help us replenish all of our death defiances. Even though we only have 1 missing, that's really good. We do choose to instead boost our attack by 60 for the next several floors, just because I think this will actually help us with beating the boss this time, but in the future, whenever we get this chance to replenish death defiances, we always go for it. At the double boss fight, we lose one of our death defiances pretty quickly, but it was necessary because we were able to take care of the Minotaurs so that I don't have to keep dashing as much and just have 1 target. Things were looking okay until Theseus got his own Helpum Dio. Great. So much for not having to dash as much. While it is annoying, I actually like the idea of the gods not helping just me, but also helping others. It's just fitting that the gods will fight each other. It's just a bit annoying for us though. Sadly, we do lose our last Death Defiance, but it doesn't matter too much because we are finally able to defeat Theseus and make it to the next level. Sadly, we aren't able to reuse our distant memory, which is really good. So I guess we'll just go with our new keepsake, Lambent Pume, to help it rank up a bit. Off to maybe our final level? Oh, and we've run into our good old buddy, Cerberus. I hope we don't have to fight him. I really don't want to fight our boy. Okay, so luckily all we have to do is get something to distract Cerberus so that we can get across. That should be easy. What I didn't realize was that this means we have to go through these gauntlets and hope we pick the right one so that we can get what item we need to help with Cerberus. And it's not even just that simple. Inside, we actually have more of what looks like a real dungeon crawler, where we will eventually run into problems of getting poisoned, where you would have to run into one of these fountains to cure ourselves from poison. And if not treated quickly, we'll just lose a lot of health. Honestly, I only barely beat the first path we picked, and just so that we can quickly die in the second path we picked. progress was made. But man, that sucked in the end. I do not like this final gauntlet. Back at home, we tell Daddy Hades that Zeus forgives him, which just gives more drama of Hades getting even madder at Zeus. Cool, love that update. I tried giving Hades a nectar and we didn't get anything. I mean, we got heart progress, but I really did wish we were gonna get a keepsake from Hades. But hey, fishing! I just gotta have it. Anytime video game has fishing in it, I find it funny, but I love it. I love it every single time. At our mirror, we upgrade our boiling blood once and then line our pockets a bit more. While this run did make it all the way to the final boss of Elysium, we don't end up making it farther than that. So this run really just turned to just get as much purple as you can for progress. But we do get one of my favorite encounters with the NPC. We meet Death, or Thanatos, our friend. And guess what? We have a fun rival challenge against each other on the floor, which I loved so much. And obviously we body him in the challenge, which actually got us an extra reward. This was probably my favorite part of this run too. And then we got body. We got a slew of keys from the Fated List, which we use on the mirror to unlock the next section of talents of privileged status, which gives a boost of damage if an enemy has multiple status effects on them. And the other is Olympian Favor, which just helps with the chance of boons being possibly rare. So we boost the Olympian Favor by 3%, and then we boost Boiling Blood up to 40%. And after getting bodied once more at Elysium, we boost our Boiling Blood to a max at 50%, our Privileged Status to 20%, our Infernal Souls to a max at 2, Olympian Favor to 4%, and Deep Pockets to 20 coins. We do use our last Titan Blood on unlocking the Aspect of Turin for our bow, making our special automatically seeks the foe we last hit, which I believe will help a lot against the bosses. More importantly, on our next run, we were finally able to use a Nectar on Chaos to get its charm. Took long enough. Finally, we make it past Elysium again, and got another chance at the STYX. But sadly, it wasn't even enough to make it past one of the paths we chose. We do talk with our boy Thanatos once back home, even though he wasn't happy that we failed even when he risked helping us. Sorry, Thanatos. Back at our mirror, we decided to spend a key to respect our purples to possibly get 3 Death Defiances, which is the max Defiances, not including Lucky Tooth keepsake. So we had to mix maxing out the Shadow Presence, the Vitality, Death Defiance, Greater Reflex, and the Infernal Soul. We then had Boiling Blood at 40%, nothing in Deep Pockets, 15 plus to our starting max health, plus 20 with Privileged Status, and only 1% in Olympian. We finally ran into the NPC Iridis, who has a connection with a certain musician at home. But we do get her keepsake, which I love, and for what little I know of Iridis, she's great. Staying consistent though, we were able to make it to the STYX. Yeah! Even more consistent, we were able to get killed before we could even get through one level of the STYX challenge. Oh, nice. Still progress, even though it doesn't feel that way mentally. Never mind about staying consistent. Goodbye, an hour of my life. Let's just boost our Olympian Favor up to 68 so that we can hopefully get some stronger boons. After actually getting it so that we have all 3 of our Death Defiances, we actually got past one of the possible STYX paths and didn't get what we needed, so back in we go. Also, since I haven't shown it, this is why I like the special bow. It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. We make it to the end of the path again, but again, no dice on what we actually need. Honestly, at this point, I was wondering if we were going to have to go through all the paths in order to actually get past Cerberus. Until we finally found what we needed. We got the bag for Cerberus, we got a fountain that healed us mostly, and a boon. I started to feel really confident about this. And fishing! After a little pay to win, we give Cerberus the goods and he moves out of the way. And I'm just actually glad we didn't have to fire our doggo. Now, it's time to leave. But, of course, we have one last obstacle. It's time to take on Hades. It seems clear to just attack from a distance, as it seems Hades does a massive up-close sweep. Until he started dropping some skulls, which had a counter on it. I thought it would be like with the Hydras, where if we don't take care of them, it will spawn more Moppets, but instead, these actually set off a shockwave, which, with the chaos, could be deadly. With a third of his health gone, Hades starts to actually make some Moppets now, and we tried to use our fully charged super gauge, but it didn't protect us, so we lose one of our Death Defiance. Hades starts sending more mobbits, and I think we actually have a shot at beating this on our first try. Again, we got off our super, a bit more effective this time, until we got hit from a thrown skull that almost killed us. And quickly we lost another Death's Defiance from the skull shockwave. And just barely, without taking any more damage, we're able to actually beat Hades on our first try. Wait, why is he getting up? No, why does there have to be a second phase? No! None of the other bosses had a full-on second phase with the health. And what's with these pots? Oh no. It didn't take long for us to get cornered and killed. No! Back home, it's actually kind of funny. When we normally talk to Hypnos, he'll normally say something based on like what we were killed by, but this time it's redacted. You can't hide the truth, Hades. And with Hades not back, it's pretty clear what we have to do. We gotta slot into our purples. I just pumped it all into our Olympian favor to all the way to 34%. Give me better boons. At the beginning of our next run, we actually finally ran into the last god to possibly help us. It's Dementor, the goddess of season. Normally we associate her with growth and nature and like goodness, but in this instance it seems like kind of the opposite. Like it's more on the side of frost and death. Very chilling, pun intended. And with that, her boon type is chill, which slows the victim down, which can be super powerful. I quickly saw that her boons were amazing, so good. So yeah, I started leaning into using her boons whenever possible. They're just that good. I was a bit bummed we couldn't give Dementor a nectar to get her keepsake, but luckily we actually were able to run into her later on down the run, and so we actually did get her keepsake. And again, man, is her boon just powerful, especially when stacked with another effect to take even more damage. Oh, so good. Sadly, even with her boons, we made it to Hades again, but only with one Death's Defiance and having only our sword for close range, we were easily taken out. We didn't even make it to his second phase this time, but luckily there is some fruits from this run. Kind of. With Hades still not being home, we actually unlocked the last part of the mirror. Unlocking God's Pride, which raises the chance of the boons actually to possibly being epic. And Fated Authority, which randomly alters a room's reward of our choice. So we reset the mirror again so that we can get the Fated Authority and see how good that is. Max all the items all the way down to Infernal Soul and save the rest of our purples to raise God's Pride to 12% and to get that epic boons. And lastly, the Fated Authority to 2. More important than the mirror though, we got another flashback. And with this flashback being the furthest we've ever seen, we're told to head to work, where we finally get to see what's behind this door.
Oh God.
I honestly busted out laughing when I first saw this. Just the game literally making it busy work when we instantly clock in. Our job is to just run around and attempt to sort out some ledgers of our father's realm. And honestly, not ever getting it quite right. Until Dad and I have a little squabble about working here and whose responsibility it is, and we ended up getting fired. While it doesn't explain the story in full with our mom, it does help to paint more of the story with this family drama. While it's easy to say that they should just talk it out more, coming from personal experience and growing up on a big family farm, sometimes it's not so simple, and sometimes it's just more easier to get into squabbles that don't help the situation or the relationship. After another failed attempt at Hades' second phase and another mirror set, we start going for more focused runs on Dementor's boons. And after several attempts, we get to Hades once again, but this time with no Death's Defiances. But we do have an ace in the hole. We got the duo boon, Stubborn Roots, which, if we don't have any Death's Defiances, we actually slowly recover HP, aka time to be cheesy. The gameplay of the fight is to constantly lodge our projectiles into Hades to get that bonus damage from that, and then chucking our shield at him to constantly stack chills on him so that he will be perpetually chilled. And when we can, go in for a normal attack to get some poison effect on him. So that we'll not only get damage off constantly, but we'll also get bonus damage for having 2 statuses on him. And then, when he sends out goons or skulls, we panic and try to just take them out quickly. And this strategy was able to get us to the second phase. Hurt, but to the second phase. The bright side was we could be a coward for a bit if we needed to heal up. And honestly, the biggest problem was the pots combined with the skulls. it just added for a very possible chaotic mess that made it hard for us to get our areas in order to actually hide and heal. Which, at this point, my heart was pounding so hard. Especially in moments like these when I would just instantly go under half our health. So we started taking out the skulls when it appeared and keeping our distance from Hades behind pillars constantly. And with it, we were able to maintain our health a bit. Until we were able to finally take down Hades. Not kill him, but we were able to leave. Oh. Before we go, Hades gives us a message to give. To tell her that Cerberus is doing very well. As we get to take a serene walk for the first time in his life, our boy Zagreus gets to see the sun. But better yet, Zagreus finally gets to meet his mom, Persephone. And as she finally recognizes us, crying out that we died and being happy that Hades kept the name Zagreus for us. But with time passing and us sharing our journey of how we got here, we slowly started to not feel well, and we began to understand a little as to why we weren't allowed to leave. Well, more how we can't leave. We, like Hades, are bound to the realm we fought so hard to leave. But with promising we'll come back, no matter how long it takes, we die once more. We have to say goodbye to our mom.
It takes. Can't hold on.
While I know where we ended off isn't actually the true ending of the game, I do know it's not the full story. Well, it's a roguelike, so it's gonna take forever if I wanted to actually complete the full main story. It basically would consist of me having to repeat the process of making my way all the way back to Persephone. And while for many who have done that, I think it's very fulfilling, and I think it's great that the game did it in this way, still keeping within the main flow of the game of like, oh no, we're gonna keep going and keep completing the whole run in order to make it to the pass. And while I do know they added, just like many roguelikes do, a pact feature, which actually helps with like increasing the difficulty to the game for each run, so that in case you want more of a challenge and also more rewards, that's there. I mean, I've never been one too much in most roguelikes that have this feature to normally do them. I kind of don't care too much about it. But honestly, just to keep from this video being forever and my life being taken over by this game for so long, I'm just gonna call it and have this be what it is. Again, I don't think it's the most fair thing to do, especially for the genre of roguelikes. It's very normal. It's actually very much part of the standard of roguelikes that once you beat it the first round, then you're really starting the game. That's a lot of roguelikes, is once you beat it once, then that's kind of like, oh, I'm outside of the tutorial. And it's not exactly to that point, but it's kind of like that. Going on with this like continued part of the game, I really did like that they did it in this way. They structured it in a way where it makes sense to continue going on runs and runs and runs. And even to the point of when you go back in home, you actually see Hades. He's back at his office and you talk to him and he pretends like it never happened. I think that's a great way to like flavor the story and flavor how to continue the game. I think it breaks that little weirdness of you encountering with Hades, and it feels very real to the family drama side of it. Again, I really enjoyed this game. It's very fun and it's very rewarding if you know what you're doing in the gameplay side of things, including to the point where if you put more thought into it, more time of actually combining different powers and really trying to build towards a certain build, I feel like you could have a very fulfilling experience in that run if you're trying to do that in the game. Again, the game's still not fully my favorite kind of roguelike because of the randomness. I do still prefer the more random side of things, but I still think the game is very well structured that for me, who this isn't even my main preference, I can still greatly enjoy the game because it's just good. It's just really good. I think some of the aspects of like giving hearts and giving stuff like that of nectars it seems a little bit tedious to me, to be honest. It feels like there's a lot of nectars you would have to give to each different NPC if you wanted to get their full story and interaction. But again, if you're willing to do that, I feel like it's very fulfilling. But probably the most important thing I should probably talk about as a Christian is how do I feel about playing as a Christian, especially with the Olympic gods and all that being seeped into this game. I honestly don't think it's too much of a problem. One, because nowadays, as I already mentioned, it's not really considered as a real belief. So on that side alone, I think it's fine because it's not like a real threat in any regards. But even if it was, I think it's still not shown in a way that glorifies the gods and Olympic stuff. I think that's where you really need to really take it into consideration. This one, I do like it a lot more because the focus isn't telling the stories about Olympic gods, but it's talking about family drama and relationships between, especially a son and a father. That's where the main focus of the game, story-wise, is. And I really like that more. It's much more of a safer bet for a Christian to play. Like, it's not something I'm worried about any Christian play. Like, I'm fine with recommending this game because it's just really good. And because since it's a roguelike, the storytelling is a little bit more on the back end, which is fine. So you, Christian, if you want to play a really good roguelike that's really fun and engaging and has a lot of great humor, you should definitely play Hades. It's a classic, it's a very, very great indie game, and it's definitely worth the money because it's not that expensive usually too. Thank you guys for recommending this video. It means so much to me. I really enjoy playing this game. And if you want to recommend me more roguelikes or just even any other RPG or not RPG, you can definitely do that down in the comments. I will read them and I will write it down. I have a Google's Docs just meant for those games. But yeah, thank you again for coming out and watching. It means so much. And I'm out here. Jesus loves you. Bye. Go play games. Maybe.